Hello and welcome to our latest edition of Business Spotlight. Today, joining us for an interview, I'm delighted to be joined by Kelly Cartwright from Core Recruiter. Kelly, lovely to have you with us.
Morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Kelly, why don't you just start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Core Recruiter?
So I am the owner of Core Recruiter. We're a specialist recruitment agency in the industry of construction. We supply anything on a temporary and a permanent basis across all of East Anglia.
Amazing. And how long have you been in business?
7 years this year. So yeah, quite a long time. A couple of years during COVID, which was quite challenging. So yeah, it's been an interesting 7 years whirlwind.
I can imagine. And in terms of the pandemic, did you have to radically change the way you worked?
For us, obviously, I didn't want to just sort of have a knee-jerk reaction, but it was more about supporting clients that we could and candidates. Obviously, there's a lot more sort of that went into it, you know, when things did sort of restart and reopen. Obviously, temperature checks on site, there was a lot more health and safety, a lot more social distancing and things like that we had to be mindful of. But yeah, it was more just making sure that we was there when people needed us more than anything.
That's brilliant. And so what got you into the job in the first place, Kelly?
Bit of fluke, actually. I should have ended up in marketing and advertising, needed some money. So I ended up working for a recruitment business nationally, which I absolutely loved the recruitment buzz, and got a little bit hooked. And then I think over the last sort of 12, 13 years that I've been in the industry, your sort of passion for the world of construction just definitely grows. So yeah, can't seem to get rid of me now.
You're firmly in place. And so tell us then a little bit about the type of customers and clients that you work with.
So anything from a small builder to a large national PLC and then everything in between. So, you know, no job's too big, too small. We're here for anyone and everyone, really.
Wonderful. And just thinking then about running the business on a day-to-day basis, what is it that you enjoy the most about your role?
No 2 days are the same. I think you get that satisfaction of when, you know, you're working with a customer and they really need somebody to, you know, help them out if they've got, you know, sickness, or someone calls in sick, and we can then deliver that solution for them on the same day within sort of an hour of them calling. You get that sort of sense of pride that, you know, we've helped them. Also from sort of like a candidate perspective, we've helped people get back into work or change their career and come into the industry. And then you can see sort of how you've then had an impact on their personal life and their personal development and their sort of career. So that's really lovely. You know, you do get that sort of rewarding sense. Yeah, and I think construction's it's visually rewarding. You know, you see a field and then, you know, you're part of building that community of houses or, you know, a school or a dentist, and then you think, yeah, we had guys help on that. So, you know, for me, that's the sort of like a rewarding part of it. We supplied that 10 years ago and now look at it.
Yeah, really exciting. And so then when you're filling new roles and I suppose doing various different tasks within the business, do you spend most of your time behind a desk or are you out on site? How does your day-to-day work tend to look?
I prefer being out on site. I think, you know, customer facing, customers like to see you. They don't just want to speak to you down the end of a phone. And just being sort of immersed in the industry, you know, I can learn things being in the office, but I learn a hell of a lot more when you're integrated with your clients and your candidates. So for me, it's about being really visual on site and making sure that, you know, you're seeing everything firsthand and learning. You know, the industry is changing all the time, and I just want to make sure that we're sort of all over everything to make sure that we're, you know, the specialists we say we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've already touched upon the pandemic and some of the changes you had to make. Now that we're coming out the other side of that, I suppose returning to a different type of normality to some extent, what do you think the biggest change has been that you've had to make in the business?
I don't think we've been sort of too dramatic in that respect. I think it was more just when you sort of come out of it, there was a lot more sort of people were wary of it. We saw a lot of people that came out of the industry and sort of seeked roles within other industries. So we've noticed more of a sort of skill shortage where we've lost good guys that have then gone to different sectors. So that's been sort of our challenge. And it's just trying to sort of encourage people to come into our industry now, which seems to be sort of yeah, I think everyone is in the same boat. Recruitment seems to be a big challenge no matter what sector you're in. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it certainly is a theme that seems to come up when I've been talking to other business owners in this series, even just around recruitment. So what would you say are the biggest challenges facing the business right now?
For me, I think it's obviously the skill shortage. You know, we've got quite an older generation within construction, and as they're sort of, you know, finishing and retiring and things like that, we're not then seeing the younger generation sort of fulfilling that gap. So I definitely think there's a massive skill shortage. And, you know, construction is tough. It's some of the worst working conditions. Like if it's snowing, you know, you're out and out, you know, facing all the elements. So I think some other industries are more attractive, especially if you've got that hybrid working or working from home, working from a nice warm office. You know, construction, people are like, I'm not really sure. So it's trying to make sure that people see all the opportunities that are within our industry. It's not just on-site trades. You've got all the back office stuff, the admin, the quantity surveying, the technical, that there are different sort of elements to construction. But I think when you say construction, everyone just thinks, I don't know, a bricklayer or a carpenter. They don't see every aspect.
Yeah, of course, of course. And so when you look ahead to the future for Core Recruiter, what do you see happening for you in the business in the next few years?
Just, you know, stabilizing our position in the market. I don't want to sort of, you know, you hear a lot of these agencies that want to go massive and diversify. I just want to stick doing what we do and do it well. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I don't want to be the biggest, but I want to be the best. And I want sort of everyone to think, right, we need somebody in construction, we'll think of Core. So yeah, that's sort of our plans really.
How exciting. So when you think about your role particularly, who inspires you in business?
I wouldn't say I'd have a specific person, but I think in my own mind, you sort of want to be the best of the best. You want to provide the best service. And, you know, that sort of motivates me on. You take elements from other people. You know, I think Karen Brady's, she's a hell of a woman. So you sort of resonate with people along your journey. Stephen Bartlett, again, another incredible guy. But I think it's my own self-motivation that sort of inspires me the most, of actually trying to sort of be the best version of myself, making sure that we've got a really strong business and that the team here are happy, they've got the maximum earning potential they can, and that we're providing a good service to both our candidates and our clients, really.
Yes, and I think a lot of people find that, don't they? It's not necessarily just one person or one thing, but actually it's drawing on inspiration from various different places, depending on what stage you are in the journey of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you learn as you go, don't you, as well? You know, I think rewind 7 years ago, I was a bit naive setting up a business, but you know, you just take that risk, and now we've done that bit. So you're learning of how to sort of progress and develop and expand, and you're looking at different sort of mentors and aspirational figures to take from, really.
And I wonder, actually, just thinking about then, you mentioned looking back on that 7 years ago, is there, and it might be tough to answer this, but is there one thing that looking back you would do differently now you know what you know now?
I think you could always say, you know, I'd look back and I think, oh, that was probably a naff decision, but I wouldn't change it, because I think you need to go through those decisions and learn from those mistakes. Otherwise, you'd never, you know, if we all sailed through and it was all perfect, we'd never face those hardships and those challenges. So I think there's some decisions I would definitely not make again, but I'm glad I've made those decisions and I've learned from them, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for people who are perhaps watching this in their own world, thinking that they'd like to start something up, or they've just started and it's maybe a bit tough at the beginning, what sort of advice would you have for them?
It is tough, but you've got to stick at it, because I always say anything worth having doesn't come easy. So, you know, some days I still think, oh, really? You know, everyone thinks that you own a business and it's all glitz and glam and you swan in when you fancy. It's not. The reality is that is not the case, but the good definitely outweighs the bad. So stick at it and it'll be all worthwhile.
Brilliant advice. That's wonderful. Before we wrap up, I wonder if you have anything to share around the key ingredients that you feel exist in a successful business.
I think you've got to be adaptable. And also, sort of, one thing I think people miss is listening to people. They're too quick to talk. You've got to listen. So I think a lot of the time we all just go in and, you know, talk instead of actually just sitting back. You listen, especially with your customers and your candidates. You get a lot more out of it if you let someone else speak. But you just, you know, go with it, own it. If you don't know something, say, I don't know. Like, you get so much more respect if you're honest. So don't sort of blag it, because you just sort of get found out. And I think then you lose your credibility. Whereas if you say, actually, I started a business, I didn't have a clue. And, you know, you say, what do you mean? And people will tell you, and they go, oh, right. And they actually respect you for being honest, saying, I have no idea what you're on about.
Brilliant. So honesty first all the way. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. For anyone who would like to find out more about Core Recruiter, where should they go? How's it best to find out more about you?
So we've got an office in Norwich and one in Ipswich, so pop in, see either of the teams. We've got a website, find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or give us a buzz in the office and we'll happily have a chat.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.